Business bankruptcy. Look, it's something you should know about. And during today's training, we're going to decode everything you need to know about business bankruptcies. We're going to talk about three different types of business bankruptcies, three different types of business bankruptcies. We're going to talk about how each type works, what the process is like for each type, why you need each type of bankruptcy, depending on the scenario that you may be in. We're going to talk about business failure statistics. We're going to talk about COVID-19, and we're going to talk about a lot of stuff that's changed before and after COVID-19 when it comes to business bankruptcies and the industries it's actually affecting. So look, a lot of information you're going to get out of this training. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not. Maybe it's for other people that are around you that you need to know about, or you have a general interest in what this process looks like. So by the end of this training, you're going to know everything you need to know about business bankruptcies to either understand what somebody else is going through or advise them of what they may be experiencing as they go through it. You're going to know what's possible at the other end if you ever need to file a bankruptcy on one of your businesses. Look, no shame in it, right? I mean, most of the biggest entrepreneurs that we know, a lot of them filed business bankruptcy. Even our former president and his business has filed previous bankruptcies as well. So you're going to know everything about it for potentially your business, for somebody else's business. And look, just for general knowledge, you're going to have a lot of information by the end of this training about how this process works and everything it's involved. So let's talk about business failures. No one likes to think about it, right? But as we know, the majority of businesses out there that have existed fail. And what's interesting about this now, one of my really good friends is a business broker, and she helps sell businesses. And one of the interesting things that I think I've learned from her is this switch that we've never experienced before. Whereas in the past, the majority of business failures happen with startup businesses. Like 70% of businesses that failed were actual startups. Nowadays, what happens is startups actually are succeeding at a considerably higher rate. What's happening is businesses 5-10 years old are now failing at the 70% rate. So there's so many things are changing so fast that as a result of that, if you're not able to keep up, sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes you're in the right industry at the right time, so wrong time. Sometimes you have to pivot into something else, especially with what we've seen with COVID-19. So according to SBA, about 20% of all businesses fail within the first year. About half survive for 5 years. About the 8th year or so, survival rates tend to flatten out. Okay, that's what we've seen historically in the past. But again, now what we're seeing is a little bit of a switch here, where businesses that have been open 5 to 10 years are more at risk even than what we've seen in the past with startups. Before COVID-19, a bad economy didn't really impact survival rates. Per the SBA, a boom or a bust economy didn't really change things. So, but in July of 2020, per the New York Times, the number of small business failure was likely over 100,000. So higher than what we're typically used to. We usually see about 600,000 businesses started in the United States every month, to give you an idea of the volume of businesses that are formed. And we see that significantly increase when we see a change in the economy. Look, what happens is people think they're stable working at a job. And then the economy shifts and they realize they're not as stable as they once thought they were. And a lot of those people get in and start businesses. It's what happens every time the economy changes. So before COVID-19, the SBA said industries didn't matter too much when it came to business failure rates, but food, services, and hotels tended to do better than they're doing after COVID-19, right? Lockdowns and the need to work from school have taken their toll on a lot of different industries. So per Business Insider, the hardest hit industries through COVID include hotels, restaurants, bars, amusement parks, and casinos, sporting events, the performing arts, and scenic transportation, home furnishing, stores and clothing stores, motion picture and sound recordings, dental offices, laundry, and other personal services. So look, I learned a very important lesson in business a long time ago. And many of you know my story, many of you don't. I'm actually here teaching you how to get money to survive in any economy, because I lost my business with the first crash back in the mortgage crisis, right? I owned a mortgage company. I was in the wrong place, the wrong time, lost the business, personally guaranteed everything, put it in my personal name, and it almost drug me to personal bankruptcy because I did so. Now I'm out here teaching all of you to not do the same thing and make the same mistakes that I made. But here's the lesson I learned. It's a very important one. It's not a recession that kills you. It's what causes the recession that kills you. And by that, I mean that, through COVID, a lot of industries actually are doing better. Some were completely untouched, while others got crushed because they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is a list of those wrong place, wrong time, the industries that were hit really hard by a change in the economy that was really out of their control completely. So we've seen this switch now where we are seeing a lot more business failures in these particular industries. Before COVID, FreshBooks said these are the top reasons why a business might fail: not enough demand, lack of cash, dysfunctional team, competition, pricing issues. Now, per SBA, the two biggest reasons for business failure have to do with lack of access to money, which is on this list as well. And the second thing is issues with management, which dysfunctional team is on this list as well. So what I think is interesting about this is that when you have access to capital, then you can navigate through a lot of this different stuff. And Twitter, I think, can go 112 years or something with the cash they have on hand without running out of money, and they're doing pretty bad. But a lot of us business owners can't go 112 days without having access to the money that we need. So I think it's interesting when I look at a list of top reasons on why businesses fail to just say, if I had cash in my bank account, if I had credit lines, if I had credit cards, which of these could I mitigate? And I really think you can mitigate all of them on this list. Not enough demand. Well, then you roll out other products and services. If you have enough cash on hand or have access to enough money, you can do so. Lack of access to cash. Obviously, having money on hand or having access to revolving credit fixes that. Dysfunctional team. In order to get yourself and your team in line, being able to fight off competition by creating a deeper niche or more products and services, fixing pricing issues. Almost everything from what I found on why businesses fail could be fixed if you have enough access to cash. It's not even these things that kill you. It's being financially ill-prepared for these things that kills you. And that's really one of the big lessons to take away here, is that if you don't want to even have to think about a business bankruptcy in your business, then you need to understand why businesses fail, and you need to have contingency plans to get through this. And one of the best contingency plans you can ever have is access to money, especially revolving credit. Kevin, thanks for coming in from Facebook. I'm happy that you're here as well. John, thanks for coming in from YouTube from New Orleans. What's up, Steve? Thanks for coming in. And Kevin says, coming in from Georgia. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate everybody tuning in today. If you're getting value, do me a favor. Hit the like button, hit the love button, hit the share button. Let's get this out to the world and help more people understand what we're going through today. So according to the National Academy of Sciences, a July 2020 survey of over 5,000 small businesses, not just science-based, revealed if a business had more cash on hand, its ownership has more confidence that they would stay in business. Then again, nearly all the entrepreneurs surveyed believed the crisis would be over before January 21. So again, this is more to the point of what I just said. If you have access to money, then almost everybody surveyed agreed that they have a lot more confidence in their ability to be able to navigate crisis, navigate changes in the economy, navigate downturns in their business if they have access to enough money. So bankruptcy is a process a business goes through in federal court. Okay, it's designed to help a business eliminate or repay outstanding debt under the guidance and protection of the bankruptcy court. Business bankruptcies are often described as liquidations or reorganizations. We're going to break that down here today. This depending on the type of bankruptcy an entrepreneur actually takes. So there's actually 3 different types of bankruptcies we're going to cover today: Chapter 7, Chapter 11, and Chapter 13. And these types depend on organizational structure, how you're organized, what kind of entity type you have, and what's the need of the bankruptcy. So you might be thinking of bankruptcy as I'm done, I'm out, I'm gone, shut down the business. But 2 of these are not that at all. So as you'll see today, some of these just have to do with restructuring of debt and reorganization to be able to clear a path for you to move ahead without closing the actual business. But we'll dive into that. So corporations and partnerships are legal business entities separate from their owners. Corporations are more truly separate than partnerships, even though the type of structure commonly will file of Chapter 7 bankruptcy protection or Chapter 11 reorganization. So the chapters referred to the U.S. Bankruptcy Code. That's actually what Chapter 7, Chapter 11, and Chapter 13 mean. It actually refers to the specific bankruptcy code. So when we talk about Chapter 7, this is a liquidation. Okay, this one may be the best choice when the business has no viable future, where you're not going to continue with the business. You still have debts that are owed. You still have to resolve those debts. It's typically used when the debts of the business are so overwhelming that restructuring them isn't even feasible. Chapter 7 bankruptcy can be used for sole proprietors, partnerships, or corporations. It's also appropriate when the business does not have any substantial assets. Okay, now, if a business is a sole proprietorship, well, then an extension of an owner's skills usually does not pay to reorganize it. Hence, Chapter 7 is appropriate. So if you're a sole proprietor, and I'm not an accountant and not an attorney, and this isn't accounting or legal advice, but in this case, then it's usually better if you're a sole proprietorship to go this route versus the other 2 types of bankruptcies. Now, before Chapter 7 bankruptcy is approved, the applicant must subject to what's called a means test. If their income's over a certain level, well, then their application to file bankruptcy is not approved. If Chapter 7 bankruptcy is approved, well, then the business ultimately gets dissolved. So the business is dissolved, and then as you'll find out here, I'll show you what happens with the debts. Chapter 7 bankruptcy, in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, a trustee is appointed by the bankruptcy court. A trustee's job is to take possession of the assets of the business and basically to distribute them amongst the creditors. So if we look at a business, we have liabilities, people we own. We have assets, stuff that we have of value. So when you file Chapter 7, what happens is a bankruptcy trustee looks at all the assets of the business, liquidates, oversees that process, then distributes those assets, the cash, whatever's left, to the actual creditors that are actually owed, that are listed in the bankruptcy. So the order in which creditors are paid can depend on the type of debt, secured versus unsecured. Okay, after the assets are distributed and the trustee is paid, a sole proprietor receives a discharge at the end of the case. This means that the owner of the business is released from any obligation of the debts. But partnerships and corporations do not receive that kind of discharge. So remember, if you're a sole proprietor, you are the business. You and the business are one and the same. So with that being the case, you need to have this discharge letter, or you could personally be on the hook for those debts. That's why partnerships and corporations, you're separate from the business. You are not the actual business itself, which is why you don't actually deem that discharge notice. Now, Chapter 11 business reorganization, well, maybe a better choice for a business that has a realistic chance to turn things around. So far what we're figuring out is bankruptcy businesses file different kinds of bankruptcies. And by the way, this is important information for a lot of reasons, not even just because your business may file bankruptcy someday. None of us even want to think about that. But let's say that customers that are paying you, somebody files a bankruptcy. We've had that happen before, where customers that are paying us are including something that they bought from us in the actual business bankruptcy. So this could happen to you and affect you multiple different ways. Even if your business isn't filing bankruptcy, you might have customers that are, and you need to know, like, are you going to get any money out of it or not? Well, this information is going to help you make that determination. So if you file a Chapter 7, you're done. The business gets dissolved. There is no chance to be able to have that business realistically continue on after the bankruptcy. It's why you do a 7. But a Chapter 11, well, this is different. This is a reorganization. There is a realistic chance to turn things around. It's usually used for partnerships and corporations, can also be used for sole proprietors if their income level is too high to qualify for a Chapter 13. And we'll talk about Chapter 13s in a minute. So in a few minutes. Chapter 11 is a plan where a company reorganizes and continues business under a court-appointed trustee. The company files a detailed plan of reorganization outlining how it will deal with creditors. The company can terminate contracts and leases, recover assets, and repay a portion of its debts while discharging others to return to profitability. So Chapter 11 is kind of a restructure. You've got to let some debts go. You reorganize, renegotiate other debts to get them to a point where you could pay them, maybe lower the actual interest rate, maybe lengthen the term. So it's basically looking at these debts, looking at these liabilities, and then we're basically restructuring them or reorganizing them in a way where you can pay them. So let's take about a restaurant through COVID-19. Everything's going fine, right? But now all of a sudden you're in a state where a year later, you could only be at 25% occupancy in your restaurant. Okay, well, in that world, think about it. For all of us business owners that are not restaurant owners, imagine just overnight only being able to do 25% of the business you once did. And now you have to survive on 25% of the business you once had. But here's the problem. In this example, as a restaurant, you still have to pay a lease on the building. You still have to pay all those debts you're usually paying. So your debts, the amount of expenses and liabilities you have is the same, but the amount of money you have coming in is diminished by 75%. Well, that would create a hardship in almost anybody's business, especially if it's prolonged for months or even now a year plus, that it could still be going on. So in this case, a restructure Chapter 11 might make sense. If once COVID settles down and you're back to 100% occupancy, you have a way out of it potentially, right? But the problem is you can't get to that point when you have a fraction of the income you had and massive liabilities or expenses going out. So that's just a simple example of what COVID-19 can do to a business, and also explains a Chapter 11 bankruptcy and where in the timeliness of this discussion with COVID-19, it really makes sense and how other businesses have been able to get caught up in this. Marianne, hello from Kentucky. Thanks for coming in. Shreveport, Louisiana. Thanks for tuning in. And Skip, thanks for tuning in. Credit Suite's always up to date on cutting edge, all business info. And Aduma says, please send mini quotes to Boost to try because I think come to, okay. King says, makes sense, gives you a chance to rebrand and make a turnaround. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you know the business can make it if you make it through whatever it is that's causing the problems. And that's what Chapter 11s are for. So the business presents the plan to its creditors who will vote on the plan. If the court finds the plan is fair and equitable, it will approve the plan. And reorganization plans provide for payments to creditors over some time. Chapter 11 bankruptcies are very complex and not all of them succeed. Okay, so look, there's a lot of these type of things. I've never actually had a Chapter 11 or filed bankruptcy for a business, but I owned a consumer credit company that had a significant hardship, and I forget what it was. Like, we lost our ability to process credit cards for months, and the new merchant account company started holding back all of this money, and it was an issue. And although we didn't file bankruptcy, we had some creditors that we fell really far behind with. So I actually got with them and reworked out a schedule to pay them over a longer period of time. And I paid back 100% of those debts. And one of the guys, actually, I got to get with him. He just sent me a LinkedIn message the other day. He told me in the end, he goes, you know, the people around me said there would be no way that you'd ever pay this back. And I did. So it wasn't a bankruptcy, but it was an example of a hardship that caused me to fall so far behind on some major payments that there's no way I could have continued to pay what I owed. It just mathematically didn't make sense. So went to them and said, hey, look, I can't do this, but I want to pay you. I need a longer period of time to pay. Let me pay this over X amount of time. It's X amount of money a month. I can pay that and I will get it paid. Signed a new agreement with them and paid that money in its entirety. So it's an example of how to fix a problem outside of bankruptcy, but it's also a very simple example of exactly what it would look like in the Chapter 11. So Chapter 11 bankruptcies are very complex and not all of them succeed. Usually takes over a year to confirm a plan because nobody's happy, right? All the creditors want to get all their money and they want to get it right now. But here's the problem. If they don't agree to the plan, then you go Chapter 7 route, and Chapter 7 route is that nobody basically gets paid. So it's in their best interest, if you do have a plan to pay back the creditors, to approve a Chapter 11, although a lot of them do it reluctantly because they don't get paid all the money that they're really due to get paid. And if you're getting value, again, hit the like button, hit the love button, hit the share button. It helps us get other entrepreneurs here to share this information with them as well. Okay, so let's talk about Reorganization Act of 2019. The Small Business Reorganization Act of 2019 enacted a new subchapter 5 of a Chapter 11. Okay, and the act went into effect as of February 20th, 2020, which is a year ago. And the subchapter seems to favor the side of the applicant for business bankruptcy, but it only applies if the applicant wants it to apply. So again, just some details, but they've made it easier for you to get a Chapter 11 bankruptcy actually approved with these changes in February of last year. So for example, subchapter 5 does not require that a committee of creditors be appointed or that creditors have to approve a court plan. Per the U.S. Department of Justice Act, quote, imposes shorter deadlines for completing the bankruptcy process, allows for greater flexibility in negotiating restructuring plans with creditors, and provides for a private trustee who will work with the small business debtor and its creditors to facilitate their development of a consensual plan. Look, as you can imagine, if you have a plan for restructuring that you know you could adhere to, and it takes a year to even get the plan approved, and a lot of the creditors aren't getting all their money and they don't want to approve the plan, even though other creditors are getting their money, it's a really sticky situation. And that's why a year ago, they came back with this subchapter 5, which basically, as you can see, it doesn't require a lot of the creditors to have to approve the court plan. So even if the court plan is not approved by the creditors, but the court seems that it's reasonable, you can still actually get a Chapter 11 to go through. Now, Chapter 13 is adjustment of debts for individuals with regular income. So since a sole proprietorship is an extension of one's owner, the owner is responsible for all assets and liabilities of the firm. That's very important. Let's talk about this for a second. I talk to you about sole proprietorships all the time and tell you not to do it. You just can't do it. And one of the only reasons I've ever seen that people should do this, or not even should, but they do this, is because in California, it's like $600 to file a corporation and way cheaper to file a sole proprietorship. But the problem is a lot of them, first of all, again, not an accountant, not an attorney, not legal, and this isn't accounting advice, but the statistics are sole proprietor gets audited 1 in 7 times. A corporation gets audited 1 in 50 times. So you're more than 5, 6, 7 times more likely to get audited by the IRS if you're a sole proprietorship versus a corporation. The other problem is with a sole prop, you are the business. You're one and the same. So if somebody sues the business, they're suing you. And if you owe debts, then you're always going to have a personal guarantee. You're always going to be liable personally for your debts because you and the business are one and the same. There's a lot of problems from that. Now, as you're seeing here, since the sole proprietorship is the extension of you, the owner, well, then you are responsible for all the assets and liabilities of the firm. You're personally responsible. Okay, it's most common for a sole proprietorship to take a bankruptcy by filing Chapter 13, and this is a reorganization bankruptcy. So very common, especially with sole proprietorships, to do this because you are the business. That means all the debts and assets roll over to you. So Chapter 13 is used for small businesses when a reorganization is the goal instead of liquidation. The entrepreneur files a repayment plan with the bankruptcy court that details how they're going to repay the debts. And Chapter 13 and Chapter 7 bankruptcies are very different for businesses, okay? Chapter 13 is vital for individuals whose personal assets are tied up with their business assets. This is when this is most important. It gives you a chance to get your personal assets out because they can avoid problems like losing a home if they file a Chapter 13. So let's talk about this, for example. Let's say you went and got an SBA loan. Okay, let's say that you used the home as personal, as collateral to collateralize the SBA loan. Now you're defaulting. Now you've got to file bankruptcy and your home is on the hook. If you default on that SBA loan, they take your house. Well, this is a perfect example of why you're going to actually file a Chapter 13. You can't just walk away from the business and file a Chapter 7 because your personal assets, like your house, is wrapped up into it. Now, that's not the only example, but that's a very good example of why you'd want to file Chapter 13. So instead of Chapter 7, Chapter 13 lets a business stay in business and pay its debts. A Chapter 7 doesn't. Chapter 7, when the bankruptcy is done, the business is dissolved. Chapter 13, you still have a path forward. You're just basically coming in and restructuring your actual debt so you can make those payments and still be able to survive. And again, commonly used when your personal assets are tied up in the business. So not every bankruptcy can be prevented, but for the ones where a lack of cash is the issue, getting access to more money can pull a business out of the hole. And many entrepreneurs may not even realize where they can get the money from. We'll talk about that. But look, here's the deal. It's smart that you're all here today, and I'll tell you why. Because you probably don't expect your business to fail. When I talk about personal guarantees on large stages, I always ask the question, how many of you think you will fail in the next 12 months? And nobody raises their hands. Nobody. But the interesting thing is when I look at that audience is that statistically, at least 1 out of the 3 of them will. And I say that to a business owner. I say, look to your left, look to your right. Statistically, 1 of the 3 of you won't be here a year from now. But interestingly enough, none of you raised your hands, even though that's the case. And so it's good to know this information because you have to plan for the unexpected because you never know what's going to happen. So knowing what Chapter 7, what 11, what a 13 bankruptcy is, what it's used for, all these details helps you understand it from your perspective, friends' perspective, customers' perspective, so you know how this works and helps you, again, hope for the best, but always be able to be prepared and plan for the worst. So entrepreneurs may feel their options are to go to a big bank to get money. But again, the reality is that if you want money for a business, you really need to be looking at alternative business options. As a matter of fact, if you want to get money for a business, then what you really should be doing is make sure you go to our funding challenge that happens March 15th of this month. It's in 2 weeks. And I will talk to you a little bit more, but to give you a brief overview, this is designed specifically to not only just help you survive, but actually thrive through 2021. And if you go to funding30challenge.com, you'll be able to register. It's 100% free. I'm not selling you anything here. It's 100% free to be part of the funding challenge. And when you're part of the actual funding challenge, we're going to have 30 different ways you can get money for your business, even when you think there's no way you can qualify. Okay, we're going to have 20 different experts come in to talk to you about different loans that are available, credit lines that are available, grants that are available. We're going to talk about angel investing, venture capital. We're going to talk about 27 different ways to get money that most business owners know nothing about, and a few that you may already be familiar with. We're going to teach you fundability. We're going to teach you business credit building. It's going to be 1 o'clock Eastern to about 3:30 Eastern, March 15th through the 19th. It's going to be 5 days, and it's a special group. It's very locked down, but again, it's free to be part of. So this will introduce you and give you some solutions to help you be able to get money from these alternative funding sources instead of going to get money from the big banks. So many businesses fail within the first 5 years. But as we mentioned, we started to see statistically things change where now more startup businesses are succeeding and more businesses that have been open for 5 years are failing because technology is developing so quickly that companies like Kodak, for example, or Blockbuster that aren't adjusting to those kind of technologies are going out of business even faster. And obviously with COVID-19, we've seen a lot of business failures in industries that weren't even at risk before, but now are just decimated with this, and a lot of people in the travel sector, restaurants, etc. So for corporations and partnerships, well, Chapter 7 and Chapter 11 are really the best choices. Chapter 7 is when you walk away, the business is dissolved. Chapter 11, you're working with a trustee to actually work out those debts and pay back those debtors. Okay, so some differences there between the two. And Chapter 13 is, again, more common for sole proprietorships where your assets are locked into the business, or you personally guaranteed something like your house as part of a business debt, where you need to make sure that you don't lose your personal assets in the bankruptcy. It kind of gives you an overview of those. And again, if we can help you along the way with getting money, don't forget that we work with, over 1,000 different funding sources. We never charge you any money to help you get funding. Of course, lenders charge rates and terms and fees, and we negotiate that to get that even lower for you. So if we can help you along the way, we've got a ton of different options where we can help you get funding. And again, don't forget to go to funding30challenge.com. 100% free, March 15th through the 19th of 2021. Over 30 different ways to get money for your business, 27 of which most business owners know nothing about. Over 20 financial experts are going to come in and teach you everything from getting grants to private money to even taking a business, even if you're just starting it, public, and using that to actually raise money. A lot of us didn't even know that's an option. That's the kind of stuff that we're diving into during this funding challenge. It's stuff that's mind-blowing in a lot of cases where business owners didn't even know this stuff was possible. And now we're presenting all these really unique ways to get money, even when you think you can't get approved. You can go to funding30challenge.com. You can check all the details of the challenge out right here, including taking a look at all the speakers that'll be joining us, that'll be going over a number of different funding programs and much more. So you make sure you check that out. And also, if you got value from this, please like and subscribe on the channel that you're on. And don't forget to give us a call for a free consultation. On a free consultation, we'll get your business credit reports for free, about $750 from the credit bureaus. We get them for you at, $250 to get them from the credit bureaus. We get them for you at no cost. Tips and tactics to build your business credit. We go through a fundability assessment to see what's wrong with your fundability, give you advice to fix it. And we do a funding qualification to tell you all the funding you can get and qualify for now. You can give us a call for that consultation at 877-600-2487. If you got value from this, we go live every Tuesday and Thursday at 1, 11 o'clock on Wednesday to talk to you about more ways to get money for your business. You can access our social channels at the top right of our page, creditsuite.com. We have daily tips on places like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, hundreds of videos on YouTube, a podcast you can listen to on the go. And don't forget to register for funding30challenge.com. Funding30challenge.com, guys, we're already, and we haven't even advertised this yet. Okay, we haven't even promoted it. We just set up the group, etc. We're probably going to have, 5 to 10,000 people that are in the actual funding challenge itself. But when you get into the challenge, make sure that you say hi to everybody, introduce yourself. You can already see that a lot of people are already coming into the challenge, introducing themselves and telling us a little bit more about them and their business. So this is going to be a wild ride. We're all going to work together as one huge, huge community. And the whole purpose of this community getting together March 15th to the 19th is there's one purpose to the challenge. You walking away with at least 3 of your favorite funding options that will get you money for 2021. That's it. That's what the challenge is about. It's giving you 30 options, and the challenge is for you to choose your 3 favorite that work for you. And you can join the group, join our community at funding30challenge.com. And make sure you say hi, as everybody else is saying when you get in here. And like I said, we expect to be somewhere between 5 and 10,000 people are going to join the challenge. And we're going to change a lot of lives to help you get money in 2021. So make sure you go to funding30challenge.com. And I want to thank you very much for tuning in. Let me see here. Makes sense. Okay, Kim, how would you make a great college business? Oh, you'd make a great college business professor. I thank you very much. I thought about that. I actually do mentorship for some college students at places like FSU. But I appreciate that. That means a lot. And John says, yep, you got my VIP seat. Got my VIP seats. Awesome, John. John talks about VIP seats for the challenge. With a VIP seat, you get backstage access to actually meet with the speakers once they're done talking. And you also get the ability to get all the recordings for the lifetime. So actually, once the challenge is done, we take down the videos, but you actually get lifetime access for the recordings as well. But again, the challenge is completely free. And it looks like John already grabbed his VIP seat. So we'll see you in the VIP room, John. Always valuable info. Skip, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you register for our funding challenge, funding30challenge.com, where I challenge you to pick 3 of your favorite 30 plus funding options that we're going to cover March 15th to the 19th. I won't be here live that week. I'll miss you. but I'll be in a private closed Facebook group for the challenge with 5 to 10 other thousand people to working together towards one cause. And the one cause is to make sure that every individual in that challenge walks away with 3 different ways that they can be able to go in and get money for their business. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure you register funding30challenge.com. I look forward to seeing you on our next training. We're talking about more cool ways to get money to grow your business. Have a great day.